Zare, Bedelasnem Iker Belen, Igna Yebedelnen Ikeren Demenil, Awada Nam Tagban, Kakifu Adenenen Fi, Mengist Yante Antanantana, Highly Maskan, Lisleale.
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankongo and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early were the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, who spirit and sacrifice. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Let us start our class with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Larry Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, We bow to all of you. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, great gurus, receive our love, receive our desire to love you more, to attune our hearts and minds with your great presence. Om. Peace.
So I should say, night 2, night 3, or day number 4. Mr. Biggie.
You have a way of putting a spin on things, Kabu. As I have to be searching for my orientation.
Yes, there you go.
You disorient me sometimes. I have to get myself in context.
Yes, so what's
to speak to you.
Because you do know, Biggie, that this is Sunday morning.
It is.
All right.
So technically this is day 3 of the festival nights.
Yes. And is it still going on?
Go again?
Is it still going on now?
No.
Okay.
Luciana has put a cap on things a few minutes ago, just about 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Luciana put a cap on things.
Okay.
Which I believe was how do I say this now? I don't think he was originally the closer of Reggae Songfest. I think it was Anthony B. But because of a late withdrawal, for the want of a better word, Anthony B was unable to close. He didn't appear.
Oh.
And so the task was given to Luciano.
The messenger?
Yes.
And how was that? Because remember, we had the conversation about who would close Sumfest.
Right. He represented well. He gave us a different kind of energy than he normally does. Luciano is usually a little bit slow in getting to his act. You know, Luciano likes to pray before and chant before, and sometimes read the Bible before and get into the meat of things. But after coming on the heels of Babyface and Beres Hammond, you know, he didn't have a choice. You know, not when many persons thought they had their fill and were leaving the venue. I don't think he had a choice but to just hit the high note right at the beginning. And he did well. He did well.
So we did have that conversation about Babyface and Beres Hammond. Who these are the two names that came up when we both were talking. Remember, as to who would close, but then Luciana. But Biggie, interesting because I'm seeing all the stories coming out of Sumfest, and just your quick review in terms of what this was in the context of some of the conversations we had. You said that Jamaican music is in transition. Did that play itself out?
It did. It did more than ever, more than even I initially believed that it is in transition. It was obvious on Thursday night, on Friday night in particular, that had the dance hall element in all its glory. The surprise of Thursday night was none other than YG Marley and his mother, Lauryn Hill, with a cameo from Jashi. I think that was the moment on the festival night 1, which was Friday night into Saturday morning. That was just a wow moment because persons were not looking for that kind of element. Not when you had people like J-Quan, that is very big now in the dance hall with his Chaka song. Not when you have people like Dexter Daps and Jada Kingdom and so on. But speaking of Jada Kingdom, Kabu, Friday night was earmarked by no-shows. There were 4 major no-shows on Friday night. And I think this did, I think it did some damage to the hype and the energy,
and also to the brand, because this is not the Sumfest brand. Sumfest usually delivers
for sure. And I was speaking to Kashima, was it yesterday morning, and I was saying to her that for a festival that for an event rather that was not Reggae Sumfest, for any event that was smaller than this festival, 4 artists could seriously hurt you. And it shouldn't be taken lightly that 4 artists, for whatever reason, did not appear on stage.
I noticed that Sumfest has already put out a statement saying that somebody was unavoidably absent, and the other 3, I'm not quite sure if the statement is clear enough. I'm going to have to read it again to say what really...
It's not clear enough. I guess they did not want to get into detail. But at the end of the day, 4 artists did not appear. At least 2 of those 4 acts were actually in the venue on Friday night. Yes. And for one reason or the other, they didn't appear.
So you're saying that any other show outside of Sumfest, that this would be a hit too, a greater hit. But you're thinking that, am I hearing you saying that Sumfest somehow can bounce, that the shocks are in place?
To some extent, Sumfest has, as you said earlier on, Kabu, has become a brand, and a powerful brand at that, where culture and music is concerned. And when you become a brand of that magnitude, you are able to absorb hits and irregularities to the kind of extent where brands that are not as big or as powerful as you would crumble. So I think they absorb it, and the patrons hurt, I believe, but I don't think that it would have tarnished the Sumfest brand.
So the high point I'm hearing you generally, Biggie, is YG, Lauryn Hill, Jashi.
Right, on Friday. On Friday night into Saturday morning, that was the highlight for me. A lot of other supporting, let me not say supporting acts, there were a lot of other acts. Standout acts for that night would include Dexter Daps and Capleton. These were 2 of the standout acts on Friday night, along with, as I said, YG. But because of the wow factor, you having a roots rock dance, the roots rock artist in the middle of a dance hall night, just that factor would have made it memorable.
But with a Lauryn Hill who can rap on any beat.
Oh yes, and Lauryn Hill came to work.
Yes.
She did not just come to support her son. When she stepped out, we got a Lauryn Hill show.
Yes, sir. So I'm not surprised, because she's. I mean, that is her. I mean, that's the way she functions on stage. I mean, if she takes the stage, she's working.
No, yeah, well, not all the time. You know that there are past issues where Lauren turns up late, don't turn up at all, and that kind of thing. We never had that issue here in Jamaica, but she's renowned for that in other spaces.
In the latter days.
Yes.
Just before she walked away.
Yeah. But no, she was in a no-nonsense mood on Friday night. And YG, it was a symbiotic relationship where son was strengthening mother and mother strengthening son, because I believe that YG, given the position that he is in, is certainly giving back his mother a highlight.
But let me ask you this, Bigay, because all right, I have I love Lauryn Hill too, the moon and back, and I love YG.
Yes.
So these are two people I love.
You mentioned YG to me when I didn't know who YG was.
There you go. And I got suspended for interviewing Lauryn Hill. I don't know if you remember that. But
no, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, Lauryn Hill and the Fugees. I interviewed them here at IRFM, before Handel Tucker can tell you. Remember says Handel Tucker about something? I said, no.
That music news, that entertainment buzz?
It wasn't entertainment, wasn't it? It was Cool Runnings that was coming in the morning between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Oh, well, it probably was a double though, because
yes, it was a double. It was also in the music news.
Yes, no man, it was.
And later on, they were in studio with me.
Yes, yeah, man. I certainly remember that, because I was the person who took them from off the step. Lauren and the rest of them can't pick up.
All right, well, there you go. So my first suspension, at least my suspension letter, which was recalled, was because I did that interview. But that is when you can't do nothing if you're not 100% reggae. And so I did break the protocol and the rules. So just to say that I love these people, right? These Lauryn Hill and YG and so on. But let us have a quick conversation, Bigay. And I know you're tired. But what possible damage, if any, can this symbiotic relationship that you talk about between mother and son cause to the son, who is now, he's the one who is the star now, who is now going out to become even bigger? We see what they're doing. Is there a possibility that this symbiotic relationship can cause damage to his individual career?
I am not seeing that. I am not reading that at all. I am reading that both parties will eventually benefit, because bringing mother to center stage means that you are taking YG Marley's songs or his music to Lauren's generation and taking Lauren's music to his generation.
Is there a possibility that there might be a disappointment once you set this in stone, that there's disappointment when you try now to separate the brands? These are two big brands. When you try to separate them, what happens? Is it, Lauren of course can go out on his own. Will YG Marley suffer the disappointment factor? In other words, he's now taken the stage by himself. Will that impact the fact that there's two? Lauren is massive, and I noted the response at Sumfest to her, right? That she there was a massive response obviously to YG, but Lauren is the one that really got this response. And I wasn't in the crowd, you can tell me. But that is when the concern came to me. I thought, wow, they're going to need to separate these two brands quickly. And
maybe we shouldn't be separating them as quickly as you're suggesting, Kabu, because I believe that at the end of the day, the music is going to speak for itself. If YG, for example, scores another 2 or 3 songs in quick succession, I believe that the separation would have taken care of itself. It would have been separated without surgery.
Okay. All right, I take the point you're making, and I would prefer to lean towards what you're saying. But I obviously, this is my skepticism, and we can probably unpack it some more when you come forward. But it's just my thinking. So it all wrapped a few minutes ago. What for you was the biggest takeaway, apart from the Lauryn Hill YG factor?
Well, as I said last week, and I said it earlier on at the top of the program, that reggae is in transition. Mm-hmm. And my curiosity is to see where the new stars are coming from. Well, I believe that YG is definitely one of the stars that we should watch out for. Mm-hmm. And let me hasten to night 2 to say that Nighty Boy is also one of the new stars that is on the horizon. Mm-hmm. He gave a very, very, very good account of himself on Saturday night into Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. It shows that he is far more versatile than the dancehall songs that he has scored with since 2024. You know, he is the talk about act in the local space for 2022. Mm-hmm. And even though he's a singer, right, a pure singer, not a sing-J or a DJ, he's a pure singer. Mm-hmm. He has certainly made an impact. Mm-hmm. His appearance at Reggae Fest on last night was, to me, one for the books, because he came, he paced himself, he took his time, and he showed that he is multi-layered. He is not just about dance hall. He can take on the different flavors and do it with great effect. So much so that what happened in his set was some bit of a historic moment when he was honored by the organizers of Sumfest and the mayor of Montego Bay. Now, historic in my books, because I believe it is the first time that a debutant at Reggae Sumfest has been awarded. So that speaks to me of the promise of an artist such as Nighty Boy.
And so it goes also to your point again of the music in transition and the point you raised last week.
Yes, yes, and he certainly is one that would be my draft pick. And anybody else you see coming out of Sumfest, obviously, he would be one of the biggest names as a new not new, as you said, debutant, let me use that term, coming out of the space. No, maybe because I'm a little bit too picky. Right? Maybe there are others, but they just have not come on my radar. There are several other names that that appeared for the first time or new enough that could transition. There is Diane, for example, which is a down sound act, right? I believe that if he does the work, he could certainly be one of those that could come to represent. He's very talented. He's very talented as well. But in terms of an impact, I believe that he's not on my radar yet. And as I said, maybe I'm a little bit too hard to please, but I certainly know and have seen his potential.
But usually you're able to tell, and you're 99.9% always right in terms of what you see coming out of Sumfest, where these artists will go next. And so I'm listening to the point you made about Nightgate Boy and what you said just now. Bearing that in mind, because Sumfest is a stage that usually, although now you have to throw in the digital media, which is something that it's more or less, it's newish, in the whole musical industry. So that in looking at this one person who has come out as if you talk about the music in transition, and here's this one person that you have identified who has come out from the Sumfest stage, how optimistic are you that the transition phase is moving into the new phase, or for you is this going to be is it a longer process than you would have envisioned?
That's a tricky question, because music is so unpredictable that the things you think will happen immediately take a long time, and the things that you weren't even looking at just happen overnight. And this is what, take YG, for example, right? He literally came out of nowhere and became a sensation in such a short time. Nobody was looking for that. You know what I mean?
When he came from the digital spaces, he big on the digital spaces before the mainstream media or even the mainstream alternative media.
Yeah, man. For sure.
Pick him. So, and that's why I said that. So there is that to take into consideration. But it will be good to see what happens.
It is, and I am following this clearly and closely, because I would really love to, because the music needs it, you see, Kabu. The music really needs now new stars on the horizon, right? We see what is happening with Buju and his escalation now into superstardom, right? And I believe now that we should be positioning ourselves for heirs to that throne, right? The door that he has thrown wide open now, giving so much opportunities to the new acts because of his positioning now in the system.
And talk about that positioning. And talk about that positioning for Buju. Obviously, you've been watching the shows coming out of out of New York, out of the United States.
Yeah, sure, right.
Massive sellout.
Yes.
Yeah, and when I mean him sell out, I mean that the seats, so the tickets were sold out.
Sold out, right? And with a big tour that is coming up shortly, and the tickets for those based on my sources is that these tours are just, the tickets are going super fast as well.
Yes. I'm seeing that. And I'm seeing the iconic images coming out also. I'm sure that you've taken note of the iconic. Yes. Just last week we were talking about that fist of Donald Trump raised in the air. Now we're talking today about Buju Banton. And that iconic, I call it archetypical, right? Archetype, that picture of him with his head bowed and his locks wrapped around his head. Very reminiscent of something.
Proportions a bit protruding.
Yes.
Yeah. Reminding you of another portrait of historical stature.
Yes, you can't help but think about that. And then you put that in context with the number one song that is in his repertoire right now. You think about what Buju is doing on this international stage and is being accepted, because remember that others have made that kind of connection, and have been, I think, lambasted for it. And I'm not quite sure if they made it in. I think what he has done is he's done it in such a creative way. That's a little bit different from when, was it the Beatles who came out and said that we're bigger than, you know, you remember that interview with the Beatles? One of those Beatles said, you know, we're bigger than the most iconic. Right, and what happened then? Even though it didn't really hurt them, you know, forever, but there was a kind of a backlash. But so we're seeing though this creative way in which that iconic statue and which a song is being brought into the imagery of all of that. This is phenomenal. You have to be not so tired, Big A, for us to have that conversation when you come into the studio.
I have always ears for you, Kabu. Yes. I always have time.
Yes.
Right. But as I said, we need no heirs to the throne. We need no more stars and superstars, and we need people now to be stepping up their game, because there is now a renewed interest in reggae music. And let's say reggae dance hall, there is a renewed interest. And if we are here farming the food, then the boat could miss us again.
Right. That is so. That is true. And kudos to Sumfest and the team because I think the artist you reference as a debutante coming out of Sumfest. Also, is he signed to Down Sound? Am I right? Or
No. He's not.
So he's not a Down Sound artist.
No, man. Is he being groomed? It's
Diane. Okay.
He's been groomed, and he's also a good act, and I believe could also be one of the prominent persons, and you know, take it from there. He definitely has a lot of potential.
All right. So, just your vibe again in 30 seconds, because we're out of time. Just your vibe now coming out of Sumfest. I mean, so you've been there, you've been going forever and ever. Amen. Just your thinking coming out now as to where the music is.
All right. No, you know, our parents used to tell us that when you age come off a calendar, you're a big smarty.
Yeah.
You're not. Right? Well, Sumfest is 31.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Them last year on the calendar.
Okay.
So, you know, next year they're not on the calendar at all. So they would have now become a big festival. Right? And things are going to be measured differently now that you're a big man.
All right. Big boy thing.
Yeah. So, I believe now that they have new responsibilities, right? Including the being a serious partner in helping the music to go forward. No longer can you sit back and wait until somebody else makes a superstar. Right, and then you hop on the wagon. You are now a partner in the process, and this is one of the things I believe that they should invest in, because this music that is in transition, to get us out of the space is going to require all hands on deck, because we are now living in a different time from when reggae was in its heyday in the 80s, in the 90s, and in the early 2000s.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Big A. Looking forward to continuing this conversation when you're coming next week, Sunday. Who relieving me? You probably don't have no idea.
No, I think it's Collision. You know?
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Big A. All right. I know you took the time. I know you took this time because you're not sleep yet.
No, man.
All right.
I just, in fact, I wanted to use the broadcast line to speak, but we wrapped up before that. So I actually drove to the place where we were staying and waited on the call.
Look at that. Look at that. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Journalist extraordinaire. Big A. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome.
All right. All right, Mr. Bigay there on the beat as usual. Reggae Sumfest wrapping up in the wee hours of this morning. Well, just after 6 o'clock, and really, really insightful presentation there from Bigay, because he has been watching the music for a very, very long time, and here we are with a very, very, he's got an analytical mind, you know, so when you hear him talk, it is what it is. As I said before, an insightful conversation there. All right, not sure what's happening, but let's do this. 3 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa, and we're scheduled to go live to Kenya and to speak with our sister Wanjira Wanjuru, who is an activist in Kenya. And just let me know what's happening with our sister Wanjira, if she is online. But she's an activist there in Kenya, who has been participating in some of the protests, who has been looking at what's happening on the ground in Kenya itself, and doing some great work through all of that. Our sister, as I said before, an activist. Let me see if we got her online. Our sister Wanjuru. Are you there, my sister? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. I'm hearing you also. You are loud and clear. Thank you for coming through on this line, coming through from Kenya. Really appreciate that you're taking the time to help us to understand and to update us on the situation, ongoing situation in Kenya. First of all, a little bit about yourself. I know you're an activist. Tell us what do you do in Kenya?
Yes, I am a social justice activist in the country. I have founded a social justice center that has sparked other communities in the country to start their own justice centers so we can advance the cause for social justice and dignity and human rights in our country.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, on the side, I am also a consultant on matters human rights, research, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. We see you on the beat. We see you literally taking this activism to the streets, especially within the last few weeks. And first of all, can you help us to understand what led to the protests? This youth-led protest, first of all, and then generally the entire nation in terms of the demographics. What led to this protest, this overpouring onto the streets of Kenya?
Yes, that's a good question. What prompted the protest is the finance bill that was tabled 2024. Mm-hmm. But there were other issues that were boiling up over time. Kenyans were growing by the time tired of the corruption that was happening in the country, of the impunity, of the disregard for the rule of law. Everything was not going all right in the country. And then already we were paying taxes and not getting the services that we are supposed to get from the taxes. The education sector was not functioning as it should be. The health sector was not functioning as it should be. The doctors were on strike. The teachers were on strike. And then the president introduced this finance bill that was all about taxing Kenyans even more and taking the very dear basic things that they should be getting. For example, the Linda Mama was to be taken out. Linda Mama is a program that protects pregnant women when they're going to deliver in the hospital. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is provide a card, and then you get free services. So that was taken out by this. All unemployed youths were supposed to pay 300 Kenyan shillings every single month to the government. This was proposal of this finance bill. So it had some various outrageous austerity measures that Kenyans had to really come out and protest against them. Mm-hmm. And now the protest morphed into protesting against bad governance in the country, protesting against selling our country to the IMF and the World Bank, because this was a bill that came from the IMF.
Yes.
So that we could raise more money to pay taxes, but we don't even see what these loans are doing for us. So they became even about accountability. Mm-hmm. When the president takes the loans, what do they do with these loans? Because we cannot say for sure this is what the loans have done for us. So we need to raise money to pay back the loans. So there was just serious resistance from the young people that were joined by other patriots. And the protests have just been morphing organically into just anti-government protests overall.
And this is a point that is morphing organically because, and to the point you made also, that there were these issues bubbling under the surface, that people were feeling, so there was angst before. Obviously messages would have been sent, to the governing party about how the people of Kenya were feeling. So what was the response before the protest overflowed onto the street? Was there any kind of acknowledgement of the people suffering?
You see, now that's the other thing. We are unfortunate to have a president who lies to us every time he comes to address the Kenyan people. So there was absolute disregard for the people's demands. Even right now, people are promising to go to the streets again on Tuesday. Because the president had sacked the cabinet secretaries, and he's reinstated them, even if they are corrupt, even if we say do not bring them back, so people are feeling like they are disregarded by the president, their sovereignty is not respected, and there's no goodwill to actually deal with corruption, which is really troubling our country. Every corner of Kenya right now, everyone is just like, this corruption has got to stop. So when the president brings back corrupt cabinet secretaries, it's basically telling Kenyan people, I'm in charge and I'm going to do whatever it is that I want. And Kenyans are like, no. This is our country. You're going to run it the way we want you to. So on 23rd, Kenyans will be on the streets again protesting.
Wow. So what we got here, we saw what, after days and days of protest, it appeared as if there was a response from the government. We saw and heard that corrupt ministers were sacked. You're telling us this morning that those corrupt ministers who were sacked are being reinstated even as we speak.
Yes. Yesterday, the president addressed the nation, unveiling his new cabinet secretaries. And 4 of those who were sacked, actually about 6 who have been reinstated, and some of them are even more corrupt. Others who've come on board are even more corrupt. So there's absolutely no goodwill to listen to the protesters, no matter how many of us were on the streets. I think you saw there were millions of us with demands that we need corruption to stop, we need the killings to stop, we need accountability, and we need systems to work in our country. So we have not been heard, and this is why the protest will continue, even though at high risk. Even though at high risk. Because the president has said that he wants to restore order in the country and is going to protect the country from protesters, just kind of selling fear to young people so they do not come out to protest. But the young people are adamant. I think we are just like, if we don't kick him out this time, we are also going to be in trouble. And we definitely do want our country to work. We definitely want to rid our country of bad governance, of corruption and impunity, and just a theft that is killing us. Corruption is genocide for the majority of poor masses in Kenya.
So help me to understand this. So William Ruto is really not listening. And so where is he getting the backing from? This digging in of heels and disregarding the millions who have taken to the street. Is it in any way connected to this new relationship that he has developed, announced globally with the United States, NATO's non-NATO ally?
You see, that's the other thing. Our country does not want to be a non-NATO ally. What is that? Young people are just looking at this like, oh my goodness, we do not want to be a non-NATO ally. We do not want our internal affairs to be interfered with external players. We do not want IMF to dictate the economics of our country and what goes and what does not. So we hate to see our president being a puppet of the US, of Joe Biden. We hate to see our president puppeteering and auctioning our country to the IMF. But this new I think boldness is coming from his renewed relationship with the former leader of opposition. I'm calling him former leader of opposition because now the official of opposition in the country is the young people who are on the front line leading the protests and demanding for better governance. So the former leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, who's eyeing the African Union representative seat, has joined hands with the government to try and secure some positions for his colleagues in the party, Orange Democratic Party. He's been called out by majority of people in the country for being a sellout, for being a traitor, and for betraying the hopes for a new country that he has fought for in previous years. So I think that is what is giving him some courage. But it's not going to work. These protests are leaderless, and it's the young people really that have all the time and only armed with patriotism and to see better living conditions for themselves and their future generations.
Let me talk about some of those young people who have been arrested. Can you tell us what that situation is now? I noticed that there were some court cases. Are they all out, or do we still have ongoing trials?
A lot of young people have been arrested. A lot of young people have been abducted. Some are still missing. 50 young Kenyans have been killed since the onset of the protest 3 weeks ago. And the president comes and says, my government will be a government of no extrajudicial executions, really just dancing on the graves of all the young people we have lost. So we have a very progressive judiciary at the moment that is very lenient on the protesters in the court cases. They are giving very lenient sentences or even punishments. The other thing is we have a very vibrant Law Society of Kenya. The president of the Law Society of Kenya has been very busy going to every other police station, securing the release of people, calling out the president on their disregard for the rule of law. We have seen everybody join hands to try and salvage our country from the misleadership of William Samoei Ruto. We've seen a lot of patriotism from every sector. The doctors are also coming to help the protesters free of charge. We are seeing lawyers also flock to police stations to represent people at no cost at all. We are seeing Kenyans really come together to fight for a better nation.
And in terms of I'm happy to hear that there is this support of young people. I saw some lawyers marching, saying that we are supporting the young people, and if they are arrested, come to us. And I also did see the doctors. I'm very happy that even the judiciary is really involved in terms of giving light sentences. So that to me is gives us some hope on this side. We are in support of the protest. We understand what is happening. We're very aware of the level of corruption in Kenya. The fact that the IMF, Jamaica has suffered in a similar way in terms of kind of acceding to the IMF's rules. And I'm glad that young people in Kenya are taking a stand. What this has done for us, though, is to motivate us here on the ground. And I'm sure people around the world as we watch what is unfolding in Kenya. What are the demands now, if any? Because obviously this is a leaderless, as you said, movement against corruption and oppression. What are the main demands, if any?
Our demand remains to be that Ruto must go. He has shown us time and time again that he has absolute disregard for the people of Kenya. He has no desire to bring the change that we want as the people of this country. So we do not see him even fulfilling the little demands that we have put out there already. We have said we want all the comrades that died in this fight, all the martyrs, to be compensated, to be honored as heroes fighting for justice in our country. We have said that all corrupt people should be held accountable. We have said that we need the independent electoral body to be reconstituted so we can recall all the members of parliament that voted against the will of the people. We have put so many demands out there that school-going children be given food when they go to school. The president took that out, and he wants to fund the office of the First Lady for prayers. We're just looking at this like this is ridiculous. So we have seen that the president is incapable of fulfilling our demands, is incapable of upholding the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which is our leader. We are guided by the Constitution. We are led by the Constitution. So we continue. Our main demand is that Ruto must leave office so we can take back our country and steer it to the right direction of alternative political leadership where we can have accountability and patriotism.
Are we seeing, I know you yourself, my sister Wanjira, you have emerged out of all of this. You were who you were from before, but you have emerged as one of the leaders. I suppose we're seeing many, like yourself, emerging as leaders. Are there any demands for young people to be included in the political process?
What we are saying about this movement is that we are leaderful. We are actually not leaderless. I am not the only one giving leadership at the point where I'm at. And this is what we're encouraging around the world. Can we have a collective intellect to advance our ideas, to advance our struggle? Can we bring everyone's expertise? We have the artists, we have the poets, we have the media, we have everyone that could play a crucial role to do this. At this particular point, we do not want to have any discussions until the president leaves. We are having that hard stance because the president is also having a hard stance. We feel like dialogue is going to derail our cause because our demands are already out there. So we do not understand what we are sitting down to discuss if our demands have not been met, even one single one. The person who killed the protesters is still in the streets, even when we said arrest the killer cops, because we are very vigilant. We are very tech savvy. We have been able to retrieve the photos of the people who are killing peaceful and armed protesters. And we are asking, why hasn't this person been arrested? How then can we come and sit to have discussions while you continue to disregard even our very lives? So we do not want to have dialogue. We want our demands to be implemented first. Yes. And then we can consider if we can have dialogue.
Yes. And that has been the stance. Kudos to the young people who have said that. And I like the fact that this is something that we talk about a lot in this space. What does leaderfulness look like? And I suppose this is it. In action. Leaderfulness in Kenya. This is what it looks like, because too often we're looking for this one person or looking for another hero. But this organic movement of leaders just rising up wherever you are without even having conversations with each other, but rising up against injustice and against oppression. This is what leaderfulness looks like. Thank you so much, my sister. All right. So what from here? I heard you before of the protest that is being planned for July 25, is it?
23rd. Uganda
23rd.
will also be protesting on the same day. Yeah, 23rd July.
Right.
Tuesday.
Okay. And the outlook from there?
Come again?
And what's the outlook from there beyond the protests?
Beyond the protest is to craft a path for alternative political leadership that respects the rule of law and the Constitution of Kenya and human rights. And all those who gave their life for a better Kenya. Our country has a history of very patriotic people who have been able to surrender their lives so Kenyans could have a better life. From the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, the Mau Mau, I'm sure the Jamaican population can relate and are familiar with the history of the Mau Mau.
Of course.
The leader, Dedan Kimathi, said he would rather die on his feet than live on his knees. And we have many other patriots who we look up to and who we follow in their footsteps. And we want to be able to honor them in reclaiming our country from puppets and people who want to sell us out to the highest bidder, in reclaiming our country to realizing social justice for every Kenyan citizen and human rights. We want to be able to enjoy home, because home no longer feels like home under the dictatorship of William Ruto.
Wow. And just before I let you go, my sister Wanjira, I know that Kenya is, like Jamaica, has agreed to the United States, has taken money, obviously, from the United States to send our brothers and sisters into Haiti, for so-called peacekeeping. What's the view of the young people in Kenya regarding the police officers who have been sent to Haiti?
Of course, we are very disappointed that the president would do this to our brothers and even to Haiti under the guise of false Pan-Africanism. And we condemn it in the highest terms possible. And that is why we are saying there's no way we can achieve the Kenya we want to achieve with Ruto being the president of Kenya. He has shown us time and time again, even by sending our soldiers to Haiti. We had major protests in the country to say, do not send our soldiers to Haiti. Mm-hmm. Haiti does not need external intervention to solve their issues. Mm-hmm. They need to have a transitional committee to discuss how they can take the issues of Haiti forward.
Yes.
And we respect and support Haiti, and we believe in their own capability to be able to put the interests of the nation first, to have that transitional committee to discuss how best they can resolve the issues of Haiti. So again, the president has betrayed us by choosing to side with the United States and disregarding the voices of the Kenyan youth and sending our soldiers Haiti to die for pennies. So we are convinced that he will sell us to the highest bidder because we are nothing but slaves in his eyes. Really. This is what he has shown us.
Yes.
Through his actions, through his words, which is always lying to the Kenyan people every time he comes to address us.
Yes. My sister, more power to you, to the young people of Kenya. We support you 100%. We are rooting for you and with you. We can empathize because our situation is not much different on the ground, to be frank, with what's happening in Kenya. The fact that the young people have taken this into their own hands for change, I think, is a message to all of us. Thank you so much, my sister. And any final word? Any final word on what's happening and that you want our people to know here in Jamaica?
Just to say thank you for the solidarity the Jamaican population keeps to show us. We saw Conscience raise the Kenyan flag high. And we said Conscience is one of us. He's a son of the African soil. He's a son of Kenya. We appreciate the solidarity. We appreciate the love. And we send the love right back. We pray that someday our continent will be free from imperialism and from interference, and we're going to enjoy the wealth that has been bestowed upon us. Peace.
Ashe. Thank you so much, my sister Wanjira Wanjiru. Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you, my sister. God bless.
All right. Live link there with Kenya. The young people are serious about standing up against injustice, standing up against oppression. Enough with the talking. It is time to act. That's basically what they're saying, what they have been doing. And yet we're seeing the betrayal on the backside of all of this. We just heard from a sister that all the corrupt ministers who were sacked in the middle of this global protest, this protest that took the global stage, have been reinstated. 6 or so of them already have been reinstated, named to the cabinet. And this tells you exactly what's happening on the ground in Kenya. The massive protest against the army, the police being sent to Haiti. And yet they are there because Ruto has taken so much money already. It's a very similar kind of situation that we're facing on the island, that you protest against a massive salary increase for ministers of government and politicians generally across the board, and you're told that you will see this increase at work. And how many months have gone by now since that increase? And yet look at us. Just look at us. Right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running African, and we're coming up on another break, but let me just introduce my next guest in studio and on the phone lines. You will recall that I went to the St. Mary Literary Festival, and I came back just gushing about one of the poets. Well, all of the poets, but one in particular that he for me is one of a young poet. He's one of the most brilliant poets that I've seen in Jamaica in a very, very long time. I think he has a far way to go in terms of the heights that he's going to reach. And when I say far, I mean it will take him long. I mean say he's going to go far. He's going to go far. He is a brilliant poet. And I'm very happy that I'm going to have him on the phone lines in a little while. In the meantime, we have in studio another poet who I don't know his poetry yet, but I talked to him on the phone, so I know that him is a good poet, right? In the studio, representing Kabu, a non-profit organization that curates solutions and opportunities exclusively for the poetry industry. Kabu equips poets to master their craft, protect their intellectual property, operate profitably and sustainably, and serve diverse clientele with the highest level of professionalism. We just read them thing. And so you know that this is great work happening with poetry in Jamaica and just globally coming from the Jamaican space. So my brother, Marcellus Mandela, is in the studio with me. Marcellus, a gifted poet whose work delves into the profound complexities of family, heritage, and the enduring power of wisdom. Good morning, Marcellus. How you doing?
Good morning.
Marcellus Mandela.
Yeah, the name sounds more prestigious than the person. Trust me. Don't oversell me, please.
No, I just love the name. Is that your real name altogether?
Yes,
or
it's actually they're all part of my government name.
Of your government name, Mandela too?
Yes, Mandela is my middle name, actually.
Look here, man, somebody knew exactly what was to come.
They knew I would talk a lot. That's what they knew for sure.
Somebody figured it out. I say, you know what? But anyway, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
From Kabu. On the phone lines, the young man I'm talking about, who probably don't like me calling my young man, but is youth, Britton Wright, is a poet whose style of poetry is heavily influenced by his passion for music. We did hear that. And the love of his rich Jamaican culture. We hear that too. And his poetry speaks on a vast array of topics such as love of country, that is clear, appreciation of the divine feminine, sensuality, nature, and mental health. So, listen, it's a whole lot, but I know this brother is really a great poet. Britton Wright, thank you so much for joining us on the phone lines. My brother, how are you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. It's a beautiful compliment, and I'm here with my head swelling, you know. So thank you so much for that warm introduction.
You're a great poet. So Marcellus, I start with you. Kabu. I read a while ago what Kabu is on paper. Tell us about Kabu. May I pronounce it right?
Yeah, yes, you have. So
okay.
It's basically haiku.
Then
it's similar to Kabu. No, not the pronunciation, sorry. I'm giving you a reference. So like Japanese poetry, the poetry style, poetic style of haiku, H-I-A-K-U.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
But
you just put the J there, for Jamaica. So Kabu.
Okay.
But yes, we gave you the correct and the professional description of what we are. But pretty much this is what it is. In the world of poetry as we know it, especially in Jamaica and the Jamaican landscape, it is not considered much of a professional talent. It's more of a pursuit of passion for those. So it's like, oh, it's your passion. Come on, man. Come on the stage and come and get exposure and etc. Yeah. And so it usually even deters those who have the passion and would want to pursue it in a particular direction. It deters you when it doesn't encourage you as much because the proper channels and mediums are not set up to facilitate somebody growing and developing as a poet. Mm-hmm. So we noticed that void needed to be filled because it was a void that we needed for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so we created it. And it's pretty much just taking poets who would have just done it as a passion and help them recognize the importance of their work, the importance of it as it being a tool as well, and helping them to professionally develop themselves to grow and their talent while exposing them to broader audiences.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's a lot that I want to unpack, right?
Sure.
You said we, first of all, so who
so
are we?
Kabu, the founding members of Kabu are Casey Garvey, Britton Wright, and myself.
Mm-hmm. And so the thinking behind this, Britton Wright, and I heard what Marcellus said just now in terms of the fact that poetry is not seen as a profession. A poet is not seen as a professional person. It is something you do on the side. So the thinking behind this is, how do you then get to all these poets who themselves think the very same way, that I need to be somebody else, I need to have another profession while I write poetry? How do you change that thinking, that mindset?
Well, yes, definitely we have a perception to re-engineer or we have to reshape that narrative, specifically in Jamaican society, where poetry is not seen as a viable outlet for someone to have as a dedicated career. And we are definitely on the path of changing that and shifting that.
Is it viable?
It absolutely is, because we ourselves are proving that just based on the brief period of time that we've been developing this avenue or this catalyst. We've seen tremendous potential for what we are doing, and we are receiving a lot of amazing feedback from the poetry community as well as just the general public. So we are definitely seeing where once we package this properly, once we approach it with professionalism, we can definitely see this as a viable space for people to pursue as a career and not just as a side hustle or something you do as a side passion outside of your actual profession.
And Marcellus, I'm seeing that already from Jaiku, right? I'm really getting that feel. I've been in this business for a very long time. I've been a poet all my life. And I wish that when I was a young poet, Jaiku was around, right? Because this is, the minute I read about this, the minute I saw what happened at the St. Mary Literary Festival, I realized that this was a different thing.
Indeed.
All right. So how does it work in terms of reaching out to others? Do you have a cabal, literally a group of people, or a cartel?
Let's not use that term, cartel. There's quite a few stigmas attached to that term. All right.
Pardon more, por favor.
So let's say we're already on all the platforms, reachable of course through social media, Instagram pages, etc., which you'll find our contact information. And what happens is just a poet reaches out to us and say, hey, I would like some professional guidance. We currently have those who we offer performance coaching, speech coaching, because you have those who already have a collection of poems and they're really good, but they just haven't performed them. So, you train them in oration and certain types of speech delivery and body gestures and all of that, so that when they go on stage, they can have a proper command of it.
So important, isn't it? What are the age group? So tell me about that now, that those persons who you're working with already and the kind of response that you're getting from around Jamaica. Is it global or is it Jamaica right now?
Okay, so that's a yes, and well, it's global, but we haven't primarily focused on it being global. What's happened is that our ripple effect that we've created has started to touch waves, and we've made a few headways in Los Angeles. We've made some connections in the Caribbean with the literary framework that is already existing there, and it has been received very well. Okay. So what we offer as well is that platform where even authors can get their materials proofread, edited, etc.
And is this all online?
This is where it's online. Most of it is done online based, but of course, where we work and partner with local bodies like the Jam Copy for the legal aspects of it, because we go through that as well, where we educate them on the legalities and help them to formulate to create the actual legal portfolio, to have their patents, their trademarks, copywritten, etc.
Because Britain, this is so important, isn't it? When we talk about their issues, the administrative issues relating to poetry that a lot of us don't think about. You write a poem for a competition and just send it in. You write a poem and you send it to the Gleaner, hope so then print it. That kind of a thing. But there are other issues that we don't necessarily think about. Talk to me about some of those issues, even for yourself as a poet.
Yes, absolutely. In the initial stages, when you're just starting out, there's a lot of unfocused passion, and you have all of this enthusiasm, and you write a poem, and you're playing with the words and exploring the structure of it and you're shaping it and watching it come alive, and that's very beautiful. But when you finish writing the poem, you know, there's so much more to it than just writing the poem and having it exist. You know, you want to ensure that your work is protected from plagiarism or piracy. So you want to know how do I copyright my work? How do I protect my work? And there are various bodies, like Marcellus would have said, in Jamaica that can help us do that, you know. But a lot of us as poets don't know where to start. Like, where do you go? What is the name of this place? You know. And there's also the performative aspect of it, because it's one thing to write an excellent poem, but if you're also going to use it in the sense that you want it to come alive off the actual page, instead of just simply reading it, you want to perform it. How do you get into that? Like, what tone of voice do I use on this specific word? How do I vocalize this specific stanza? So there's a whole lot of different intricacies to the art of poetry, and also the business of poetry that we really don't talk about as much, or really don't consider as much. There's definitely, obviously, the intellectual property side of it, where you want to protect your work. There's also the publishing side of it, where you want to be able to monetize it or gain from it, and also to have it out there in the world for people to consume and for it to inspire others as well, you know. Let
me talk about publishing, Marcellus, because is this something that Jaiku does also? Is it a publishing house?
Most definitely. So from the consulting aspect of it, to compiling your pieces, to even working on the graphic aspect of what the book and the cover may look like, to, as Britton just made mention of, the protection of the legal aspects of it. Yes, all of that is done in-house. So as the latter part of our description, or company description, organization description would have said, you can either book a poet or become one. So because we have professional poets already as existing in our network and our organization. So you can book one of those who are already developed, already tailored, or you can become one if you are a poet or an author.
And will Jaiku publish the anthology?
Jaiku will actually assist them with publishing the anthology and taking it from page to putting it on the bookshelf and put it in the spaces and the minds of the children of Jamaica.
Because, you know, so many people reach out to me on a daily basis about with this one question: how do I get my poetry published? I'm just going to tell them, go to Jaiku.
So I'm sure we're going to have to work out like a commission, kind of, you know, like something for you up on the side.
Exactly.
But yes, we are here for
I get this question every day.
Yeah, and we encounter that question. We ourselves were persons who asked those questions.
Yes.
So that is why when we realized that this was definitely a need, not just because it was there for us. What happened is, I realized I needed it. Britton did, and Casey did, and then we were a part of this grand collective, this larger body that we realized, there's so many poets out there, but why are we just knowing about them? Because we're now in the network. Where have they been exposed before, and how can we help them to get that type of exposure? Because we wanted that for ourselves as well. And it's by trying to do so, and our efforts to go through that process, we're like, okay, but this is viable, and it can be done. It can also help to shape or, you know, restructure the literary landscape in terms of Jamaica and where we are, because there's a generational disconnect between our poets who, you know, the Cecil Bars, the Amina Blackwood Meeks coming down, and those who, the younger generation now. Yes. And what we need to do is have that intergeneration linkage being reformed.
Right. I love it. Let me just say that I love what Jaiku. I'm a part of Jaiku.
Yes, you are. You are officially. I have you sign some documents before.
I claim that. I love what Jaiku is doing. This is brilliant. This is what it has. As you said, this was always needed in the space.
Definitely.
And thank you so much for filling that gap.
Thank you.
This is brilliant. Now, with the little time we have left, you know, I'm going to go to Britton and I want to hear your poetry.
Sure.
Right. So, Britton, I'm so sorry you're not in the studio because your performance is something else. But go on to read the poem. And I hope that you can do two. We don't have a whole heap of time. So I'm just going to throw it over to you. Are you ready to read one or two?
Absolutely.
All right. Go ahead. You don't want no rhythm or nothing?
No, we're good with the acapella.
Because I have Ernie wrangling, and so on and so forth. All right, go ahead. Nice. Go ahead.
All right. Lost knowledge. What them are going to know, how it are going to flow. This continuance of tradition is broken because open hands only grasp convoluted tokens taken from storeroom shelves. Jamaican people lock themselves in this sickly conjured cavern of technological tomfoolery. Consider this a eulogy to bygone past times when we used to pass time pushing bicycle rim, all rusty and spoke less of how many likes will latest post get and spoke more of Anansi, Tukuma, Zachariah folklore. What them are gonna know, how it are gonna flow. The quote wore different fabric then. Then when we used to spend hours a shape tree limb to put nail in a fling with the English card and watch it spin. Why? Why them two can't try find stick in a bush where shape like capital Y and make stone sing? Because all them spy is the big pill. Them take it without the food and sit still clutching tablets, tabulating tails and tweets. No time to get acquainted with the sweet twittering treats of an antiquated. No, such things antiquated, outdated remnants of used to be. Peony wally in a tree replaced by man-made LED, and them never born come see jackass, corn and hominy. Never consume such delights with family. So what them are gonna know? How it a go flow? If not through me sketching poems with dusty metronomes and ancient acetates will vacillate like fashion to fascinate infantile hearts and wise minds. What them a go know? How it a go flow? Nothing a go grow without the roots, but the truth is the youth is too blind and brainwashed for nurture seeds, cause all them read is a Instagram feed. Lost knowledge.
What am I going to know? You're done. Listen, no, it is brilliant. I love it. No, I love it.
Thank you.
I like the way you did that, right? Because me see the gig. Because you write about the gig. You never call it the name of it, don't it?
No.
But
we leave context clues.
Right,
you know?
Yes. And
a certain generation of people will definitely know what yes. I'm talking about.
And how many can't make my mouth run water. But here's the thing. So this is what Bridget Wright does, right? So this is a critique on how we're moving away from that which is the cultural traditions and norms that the Gen X's, for example, would have grew up with, and even before that. And then we see the changes because of the digital technology moving into all you read is an Instagram feed. And this is a serious commentary on where we are as a people. But just look how we present it. Britain, wow. See, me tell you no same great. All right, so Master, I hope you're ready.
I was born ready.
There you go. I throw it over to you.
I came on feet first.
Let me turn off my mic. Go ahead, my brother.
Under this tree, daughters grew up to become mothers to be. They once spoke of their future and the many wonders to see. Youths were taught useful and beautiful wisdom under this tree. Old folks would sing songs of the ropes they swung from when they were young ones, tales now told to grandsons under this tree. My father remembers when his father planted the seed. As he deeply sighs, he rubs his hands on its leaves. Sometimes he's known to be as calm as the seas, but this time he broke down as he started to speak under this tree. He told how it bore fruits through all of its seasons, and then he pointed at his boots and said he'd studied all the roots, so like the tree he understands his strength, and therefore he keeps it all beneath him. He said, I must remember my past, plan for the future, but focus on what's between them. For though the tree has decomposed, it still contributes to growth. From the branches that it broke, look, 3 generations branches forth. Therefore, fathers used as roofs in homes and paper for taking notes so they continue living on in the memories of those who remember the many stories they have been told under this tree. And now that they have grown and have a family of their own, 2 little babies laying in beds made of the same oak, before they sleep they whisper a prayer to the Lord, saying all the things they are thankful for. Now as their pleas and praises leave their lips, it raises to the ceilings and passes through the boards before reaching the heavens' doors. Then Jehovah sends his support in the form of rain, for they have planted seeds, so it's time for another family's tree to form again. And as I remember when I used to sit under this tree, now I finally understand that where I'm standing, there once was a tree. You see, I think of my father and how I branched from the man I could be. So parents, make sure if you're planting a seed, pray for rain, but still water it and keep your garden from weeds. Groom your plants so they can grow as tall as can be. Help them make their roots strong so they won't easily fall in the breeze. You see, our children are the future, but they have detached their roots from us as we find more use for our computers. It's like we've lost our senses. We waste time chasing players and housewife lifestyles while trying to maintain high-maintenance friendships, living lives that are useless, while our children are home unmentored but still being tutored by the uncensored videos and music. The subliminals abuses them. The television introduces them to seeds that will only produce inedible fruitage, whose leaves won't be green and whose roots won't be seen, those who will be choked by the weeds until way in their teens, malnourished and prematurely released to a world filled with greed that welcomes and greets them and makes them believe in the ways that they teach them. Originations of evil. But it said words can provide healing. Therefore, I'm writing a treatment on the leaves of deceased trees that once stood above peaks way beyond the reach of our human disease and our insatiable needs. Verbally delivered through speech, but still written. So if they don't listen when I speak, then I pray at least that they will read them. And so I'll leave them where the leaves fell under this tree. Thank you.
But I have not much to say. You know, wow. When that line came to you, I'm writing a treatment on the leaves. Did you recognize that this was a line that would be repeated and repeated and repeated by many, just like how we repeat anybody from out of the Harlem Renaissance?
Well, honestly, all right, to lend some context, I wrote it under a tree. And it was a tree that I actually grew up under, and I was now watching that tree wither away to a certain extent and die. And it has every couple of years or so, you know, with my maturity and my growth, there are different layers of it that surfaces, and I'm like, oh my God, that takes on a different meaning now. And yes, one of those lines was one that I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's a brilliant line. And just a poem though. And here again I hear the theme of calling back Sankofa, because we're losing something and there's a need to call back. I hear you reaching out even to the parents in that. But what a brilliant poem.
Thank you.
To make this under the tree and about the tree. This is brilliant. Really, really, really great poetry.
Yes.
These are the kind of poetry we want in a school when they ask, what is a poet thinking?
Yeah, but so pick your brain a bit.
Yes, man, what is a poet thinking?
But it's because we recognize that as much as it's a passion and we love it, it's a tool for a message. And
yes.
it can relay so much, it can resonate, it can spark interest, influence, and motivation. It can do so much. So why not really, utilize it and be intentional about how we use it?
These are brilliant poets. You can hear that. These are brilliant poets. Casey's not online, but also Casey's a brilliant poet. And so this is the kind of talent that we have here on the island in Jamaica. I'm not going to talk enough because we have just a few minutes to go before we wrap up with them, and I really want 2 more poems. You have another poem, Marcellus? All right, one from Marcellus and one from Britton. So, Britton, you there?
Yes, I'm very much here.
So I'm throwing it to you for your second poem.
Okay. Rational insanity. This morning near the road and pass a madman sit down on the sidewalk, a write on a piece of cardboard. We couldn't help but look back and ponder What him could have possibly transcribed? Most likely, it's not that deep. You probably peep and it's just a soliloquy of random, nonsensical ramblings, but my mind keeps gambling with the possibility of something more substantial, like, what if it's a plea for help? What if it's a explanation as to how him come to leave himself in such a state of disrepair? What if this madman just describe him despair about how this careless society disregard and disrespect him humanity while them gallop gone upon them relentless pursuit of vanity? It made me think about the clean clothed insanity of our little routines. Get up every day and shoot scenes for post on with story and highlight reels. Yet we do everything but highlight realness. Because the disquieting inevitability of the twilight feel dangerously close. Most of we just stuck in this awkward in-between. One single disaster scene away from falling overboard, ending up on the same sidewalk with a round stick, big pen, a tri-talk to a piece of cardboard. With the same system failing us and people hailing us just as a means to mock and jeer. Some just look back and stare in disgust and scorn. None of we don't know when this chapter was born, but we happily jump to conclusion as to in present state of confusion. What could have possibly caused in mental contusion? I must see season spliff. White lines, or maybe him woman did accept a bottle of white wine from his best friend while knowing I'm right mind. Either way, his is a scary existence. Imagine the tragedy of being ostracized from society, excommunicated from your family and abandoned by your community, all because your mental space is in a state of disunity. Every night in sleep a street with sheets of newspaper as the place him rest him head. Every day people chase him off of them plaza cars of the way him look and smell. At the same way they would have treat we if a similar fate befell us. They would have tell us, move from your man, you stink. My heart sink more time when me think about the things where somehow we endure, which is precisely why me ensure to approach every soul with compassion, because all it take is one ugly breakup, one bad gamble, one fatal mistake to we lose ourselves in a similar fashion. Rational insanity.
Thank you so much for that, Britton Wright. It's a call.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, it's a call back to us to look at ourselves and how we treat each other. But it also talks about the fragility of the mind and
absolutely.
how any one of we can just write this or any time,
and that's it.
And how we treat each other. Brilliant. Me have too much to say. Got better, Marcellus. You see, this is Jamaica, you know. These are two points. I just two this out of Jaico, you know. It's just two. It is the brilliance of our Jamaican people that we're hearing this morning. Two brilliant brothers. Go ahead, Marcellus.
Thank you. I'll just jump right into it. They take away our power of speech. As we say less with our text, the only messages I get tells me our power is weak. Hours spent sleeping, dreaming about the towers and TV and how they blew them up just to show how they feel. Life is short and we all long for some healing, yet we write songs about evil traits and don't erase but praise the wrongs of our people. So while the devil stays scheming, I'll keep reading and listening to songs about freedom, like what he took from Eve when he deceived her in the Garden of Eden by distorting the meaning with his power of reasoning. That's why I will never underestimate the power of demons. But yet I will never cower, for I pray to the same God who now I believed in. And now I believe him, and I found out that I could follow his lead by simply following Jesus. You see, one day my brothers will need me, and I will have to find my brothers and lead them, for tomorrow needs leaders. And that's why I will never vote for their leaders, for when their doctors get sick, it's Jehovah who heals them. And so I acknowledge him only as leader and approach him with meekness and pray for the knowledge and strength to remove my weaknesses. And as I rose from my knees to my feet, my eyes slowly became open to see that I was now holding a beacon. For I spoke to a king on behalf of my people, and he told me he'd free them. I inquired about life, and he showed me the meaning. I never knew I had a light until his glory revealed it. And so as he guides my feet, I will continue to rise to peaks, for I found gold in his teachings. I know my only goal is to continue to hope and grow while I draw closer to meet him. Thank you.
Wow. This is poetry at its highest right inside your soul. All right. I'm totally out of time. Listen, beautiful poetry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful poetry. I just like the way you present. You're just going to a whole different space when you're presenting. And it reminds me, I don't know if you've listened to some of those old, when poetry did a put on vinyl, coming out of the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes,
you know them poetry. My mama's blacker than your mama.
Yeah, man.
Kind of poetry. Yeah.
So, phenomenal woman and all that.
Yeah. Back home, I might have been a dancer.
I might have been a dancer, but I tell you this. Mama don't raise no fool.
There you go, swinging and swing my nakedness from one shoe to the other. We're gonna get out of it.
We have to.
Britton, it's because you're not in the studio where you're not joining us in this thing. I tell you. Listen, I want to invite you both and with Casey back in the studio as professional poets that IRFM cannot afford to pay. And we just do a whole morning of poetry. Yes, that sounds.
Yes. So that sounds good.
We are most honored, we are most honored, Sister Kabu. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, how do we get in touch with Jaiku? How can we get Jaiku now that we're here or at work? For persons who are interested, what do they need to do?
So we definitely are across all the major social media platforms. We have an Instagram page. We have a Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel, and we're on TikTok as well. So you can just look for @Jaiku Poetry. That's at Jaiku Poetry. JAIKU Poetry. No space or anything in between, no underscores.
All right.
And that's how you can find us on all the platforms, right?
Brilliant.
And if you want to get some live experience and examples of what Jaiku what we represent, and Talk the Things is on the 28th of July. That's the last Sunday of this month. Talk the Things, that will be at the UTech. There's a lecture theater there at the UTech, and we're going to have award-winning storytellers there as well as poets. So it's a storytelling event as well, and that's something you can look forward to on July 28th.
So July 28th at UTech. Jaiku poets will be out in their numbers, and you'll get to see them live. What time?
That starts at 4 p.m.
4 p.m. at UTech. What's the cost to
And
enter?
the pre-sold tickets are at 2,500. At the gate, it's 3,000.
Right. Well worth it. 2,500 pre-sold. How do you get the pre-sold?
Well, you can contact us via the Jaiku pages. So, listen, everybody has online platforms.
Right.
Just jump online, type in Jaiku via Instagram. We actively respond.
All right. There you go. So remember, July 28th at 4 p.m. at UTech is where the Jaiku poets will be out in their numbers for an evening called what?
Talk the Things.
Talk the Things. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you,
and thank you for
Britton.
having us.
Thank you, Marcellus. And we'll see you soon.
It's an honor to have been here with you,
The honor is mine, and I think I'll be at UTech, right? Thank you so much. I'm almost going to be at UTech. I'll come.
Yeah, man. No, man, you have to come. You can't make them talk up on radio. Don't show up now, because you know how we're going to have you.
Yes. All right, we take a quick break. And going to go straight to the phone lines to speak with my sister and friend. Stephanie Marley is joining us on the phone lines now, and I know if Stephanie heard that poetry a while ago, Stephanie, did you
alignment?
I'm telling you, it's about synchronicity, don't it?
True.
I didn't even realize that they were back to back like this, Thank you so much, Vivian, for scheduling this in the way that it was all scheduled a while ago, so that we have these two conversations running in the way that they're running now. Stephanie said alignment, so you're going to understand what we're talking about. Stephanie Marley representing Wake Up Jamaica this morning. And what a particular project that Wake Up Jamaica is working on regarding using poetry, the creative arts, in the conversation, the emancipation conversation. So, Stephanie, first of all, remind our listeners, what is Wake Up Jamaica?
The Rita Marley Foundation is powering an education and empowerment campaign, really an outreach program called Wake Up Jamaica. And the aim really is to increase Jamaicans, whether we live here or we're abroad, increase our awareness that we do have a role and a responsibility to contribute to the development of the country. We have to make Jamaica the Jamaica we want to see, because nobody else is going to do it for us.
And so Art for Liberation is the next project coming out of the Rita Marley Foundation and in collaboration with Wake Up Jamaica, right?
Correct, yes.
Right. All right. So tell us now about Art for Liberation. I know this is it sounds to me like a really big project. You can tell me how big it is, because it's open to all of Jamaica. And this is, I know, what makes it massive. So Art for Liberation, poetry competition.
Right. It's a poetry and visual art competition. The theme, this is our inaugural one, the theme is Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery. We want to inspire the creative community to get involved in the conversation of what a real emancipated people, real emancipated mindset looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like through poetry. So the real reason for this initiative, as part of Wake Up Jamaica, is to inspire not just creative expression, but to be used as a tool for exploration, a tool for revealing, and a tool for healing. We believe, coming from a psychological background, that art, music, and poetry are forms of healing, not just expression, but healing. Because you get an opportunity to deep think. You get an opportunity not only to inspire yourself, but to inspire the audience. So it is a bigger picture than just a competition.
Yes.
The initiative is to increase awareness and to get the art community involved in this conversation.
So the idea is to get people thinking about what we are thinking regarding emancipation, liberation, our own freedoms, and then to represent this through poetry or through other means of or other creative ways, like visual art, for example. So who is qualified, eligible to enter?
Yeah, first of all, have to be Jamaican, 18 and older, to qualify. The art community, the poets, musicians, anyone who is inspired to dive deeper into what an emancipated mind should look like, can enter. We're hoping for professionals. We're hoping for new artists to come on board. Yeah, we would love to see JICO and their affiliates be involved in this. As a matter of fact, I will reach out to them to make sure that they're aware of what we're doing and how we can collaborate. Because one of the things with our Wake Up Jamaica outreach program is that we realize that this call to action can't just be a one-band thing. It requires all hands and hearts. Everyone who cares about the development of Jamaica, development of our people. And, we're realizing more and more, just listening to the sister that came on from Kenya a while ago, it's not just a Jamaican issue. Corruption is not just something that's happening here. Yeah, this is we have a human race issue at hand right now. Exactly.
And it's a oneness of this. So, in terms of so Jamaicans are eligible to enter into this. What are the guidelines? Because I know that this is reaching, it's not on the surface just a poetry competition for poetry's sake or a visual arts competition because you can draw, etc. But that there is a call for a deeper thinking, as you said earlier. So are there guidelines as to what people should be looking for or paying attention to as they create for this competition?
Yes, there are. So there are 3 categories. You can enter a painting, you can enter poster art, and of course you can enter through poetry. So we have 3 categories, and the criteria or the guideline is that it must it must reflect the culture of Jamaica. So we need to have the colors for the art forms, for the painting and the posters. You have to have either the colors of Jamaica flag, the flag of Rastafari colors, or a combination of even the flag for Marcus Garvey, UNI. So the colors are important, being inspired by our culture, but also, particularly with the poetry, we want to include post-enslavement. We want to include pre-emancipation, what it looks like and feels like since we have been so-called emancipated, and what it looks like and feels like after, let's say, we're emancipated. And you see, we really want to move beyond the problems that we're facing. This initiative is really to get us towards our solutions. We want to start thinking beyond where we are now, but thinking more as people who are healed from our trauma, healed from our past, and becoming really liberated so that we can find true emancipation.
I know there's some brilliant unsung poets, if you were to call it that, but people who you don't normally hear every day, who are writing some of these poetry already, and I've been to so many different poetry events that I hear some of these brilliant poems, especially as you talk about pre-emancipation or even the idea of emancipation and what that means in this time, that there's so many poets out there who have done that I hope you're listening this morning and know that you have already written your poem that you can submit to Wake Up Jamaica, to the Rita Marley Foundation and Wake Up Jamaica poetry and visual art competition. Is Poetry for Liberation. So then, there is a live line, or as we say officially, a deadline in all of this, right?
Yes, so everything has to be submitted, and art has been coming in already, but everything has to be submitted by August 1st.
August 1. So hear that now. That means it is next. Today's what, 21?
We have 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Oh, that's good time. That's good time. So August 1, everything has to be in. The last date that you can submit this is August 1. Anything beyond August 1, everything would have did lock off, right?
Right. Yeah, and you know, we've been talking about moving that to the 7th, but we really want to have our submissions in by the 1st, because there's a process, the judging process. We have internal judging, and then we're posting for the public to be the final judges of who the winners are. And just in speaking about that, no artificial intelligence can be used, that if you submit anything that's AI, it will be rejected. So it has to really come, because we actually want the artists to go through a process of revealing and exploring what emancipation should look like and feel like and sound like. And then also this process is something that, you know, the winners are art pieces that will inspire the audience to also start thinking and feeling towards becoming truly emancipated, because there's a lot of things going on inside of us and around us that are affecting us. And we have become numb to it. We're not aware, but we really need to start opening our mind to what is happening. This is the whole process of becoming awake, being aware and alert. Because when you become awake, you cannot help but become active. It's when we stay numb and we're drowning our emotions that you see the things happening around us and to us, you know, taking its toll on who we are as a people. Because I keep saying, what has happened to the spirit of our heroes and our ancestors that is inside of us?
Exactly.
Jamaica don't feel like the Jamaica that it used to be. And there's no reason why we can't not just go back, but be better than we ever were.
Understanding
the only thing holding us back is ourselves.
Understanding that as a people, too many of us are sleeping, and I can hear the point you're making, that it is this awakening process that leads to the action. But first of all, we have to talk to ourselves, understand that we are sleeping. Stephanie, what are the different prizes in the different categories?
All right, so you can win up to $250,000 in any of the categories. But for the poster art, mainly, we're looking for merchandise that we can use to promote our conversation of Wake Up Jamaica. And so there's opportunities for merchandise, there are cash prizes, there's also the opportunity, because we intend to take the winning pieces on a national and looking towards an international tour.
Has to be a reason for that, right, Dr. Ajamo, that our conversations can't be just one on one done?
No, because when it comes to the oppressor, they put out their version of their truth 24/7.
True.
Therefore, we have to put out the revolutionary interrogative message 24/7. We can't sleep. Them can't sleep because them have hired hands to carry out their work. We have to do the work directly.
Exactly.
So we have to do it every day. And people say, but I said the same thing like 20 years ago. I would say, yeah, because the conditions are still the same.
They remain the same.
They will be radical in their youth and then them change and say, oh, I get more mature. And I said, no, there's no reason for you to mellow with age. You should get more revolutionary with age because the conditions are still the same.
And it really does happen, that point you make, which gives me another idea for another topic that I'm going to call you on later on about this mellowing with age. But we started a conversation on classism and classism really last week. And what you have done and what you have said to us is that you cannot have this conversation on classism without talking about capitalism. And so I want to retract just a little, not to retract, just to look back a little to talk about classism and what it is. So just to remind ourselves of when we say classism, what is it that we're talking about and how does it manifest in our daily lives?
Right. For one, classism is not capitalism, but what you'll find in society, both in the imperialist countries, or imperialist regions of North America and Europe, is that we're afraid to openly critique capitalism. We will critique racism, homophobia, patriarchy, and we name them. But when we want to have a discussion about capitalism, we say classism. But classism simply reflects, the attitude, structures, processes that are present in society that divide people based on income, wealth, and put them in different classes. So classism is not peculiar to capitalism. Feudal societies, slave-based societies, it are their forms of classism. But for us, we do not want to openly critique capitalism because people may challenge our credibility because first thing they'll say, what do you want? Soviet communism? That failed. So if we want to be taken seriously, we will talk about neoliberal capitalism. We'll talk about crony capitalism. We qualify it. So when a person here is critiquing neoliberal capitalism, it doesn't sound like we're critiquing capitalism per se, just the current manifestation of capitalism. But all forms of capitalism, are oppressive and we should work for their destruction. There's no two ways about it, especially for us as Africans. Knowing that it was because of capitalism that we were brought into slavery to create wealth for the ruling groups in Europe and in North America later on. We should not be apologetic about critiquing it. You notice the people who are peddling reparations in Jamaica and the Caribbean, they never critique capitalism, put racism on the stand. But racism just came about to justify ideologically why they oppress and exploit Africans as enslaved workers. But people are literally afraid. Have you ever heard open critique by the reparations people in Jamaica of capitalism?
We have I have, and to be fair, I have, and I've had conversations with Vereen Shepherd in particular about in this space, public in this space about capitalism and classism and racism. We haven't had this conversation in a long while, but we've been coming for, we've known each other for umpteen years. So we have had this conversation. But you are right that there is not enough of this. And out of Vereen, I don't think I've heard anybody else speaking or critiquing capitalism, especially within the context of reparations. And also, generally speaking, hardly anyone critiquing capitalism from any angle, whether it's neoliberal or otherwise, apart from people like Maziki Them. But how does capitalism... do you think, let us help us to understand capitalism, because enough of we are listening to this who not so sure what we're talking about when we say capitalism.
Okay, when we talk about capitalism, we're talking about an economic system where the major productive wealth, that means the resources that we use to create goods and services, are largely in private hands, individual ownership of these resources. Right? So we're talking about land, we're talking about the natural resources. We're talking about buildings that we use to facilitate production of goods and services. They're largely held in private hands. You may have government ownership of small parts of the economy, or you may have properties that are held in trusts. Like, they're not private. It could be communally owned, but most of the resources that we use to create wealth in society, in a capitalist society, are owned by individuals. And that owner, and usually it's the minority of the society that owns that wealth. For example, in Jamaica, 60% of the wealth in Jamaica is owned by 10% of the population.
Wow. That
10% exists as a social class, a distinct class, and they have consciousness of the fact that they are a class. And their objective is to maintain the economic and social and political dominance over the large producing class. We call them working class, may say the sufferers, may say the proletariat. But what we have is a group that is working to generate wealth. And that's to show you the critical importance of workers, the laboring classes in the production of wealth. During the COVID lockdown, the capitalists said, no, we got to get the workers in back because we cannot create wealth without the workers working. Mm-hmm. So all these things they're talking about, they have access to capital and their entrepreneurial knowledge and skills. Mm-hmm. Wealth in a capitalist society or in a society cannot be produced without labor. Mm-hmm. It's part of the process. Labor can form everything. So what we're saying is that you have two classes, two main classes, the owning class and the laboring classes. Mm-hmm. They are in a class conflict. The problem is that those of us as the sufferers are not aware that we're engaged in a class war. Mm. But the ruling class know that they're engaged in a war, a class war against us. Mm-hmm. Warren Buffett revealed that, and he probably get, addressed down in his capitalist fraternity, when he said that there is a class war at work in society. My class is waging it and winning it. And he wasn't gloating. Mm-hmm. He was warning the capitalist class that if they keep on making things so hard for the people, they will rebel. So when you go and support government cutback of social programs like affordable housing, when the government cut funding to post-secondary education and even public education to facilitate working class people having a better chance, when it comes to disinvestment in public health care, that's what he was warning the capitalist class. You're pushing the people too far. Mm-hmm. And but he was very clear that they're engaged in a class war. We don't see that we're in a war against the capitalists. If we did, we wouldn't vote for capitalist parties. We would have our own workers' party that is vying for power. And we would have power because the working class constitutes the majority in society. So if you're voting for your working class interests, you would be in power. And that would also force certain contradiction and show that brute force is what governs Jamaican society, that governs American society.
Hold that thought. Brute force is what governs American society and Jamaican society. I have to take a quick break. We're way over time, so hold on. 51, you're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa, and our brother Ajamu is online. We're talking about classism in Jamaica, but classism and capitalism. And within the context of capitalism, our brother reminds us that we can't have this discussion, we shouldn't have this discussion on classism without talking about capitalism. I just as we went into the break, I heard you there, Dr. Ajamo, talking about how capitalism perpetuates classism and the consequences for society. You're looking at, in particular, what's happening in Jamaica and also in the United States.
Right. And also, when we talk about what are the effects of having capitalist class relations, just to make it even more concrete, when we look even at an area such as taxation, that's like a big issue for the neoliberal manifestation of capitalism. In Jamaica, we're now in a position where most of our taxes get generated from indirect tax, the tax on services, tax on goods that we consume. In a progressive taxation system, most of the taxes should come from direct taxation in the form of taxes on income, taxes on wealth, taxes on profit. And the more income you earn is the more you pay. But on the neoliberalism, they're shifting the burden of taxation on the poor. Poor people spend the bulk of their income on goods and services. So when we shift taxation to indirect taxes, is we're putting a burden on the poor, because what the thinking of neoliberal capitalism is give wealthy people the money in their hands and let them invest and create employment, and then people have money in their pocket. But all over the world, it's not working that way.
And we see the effects of that in Kenya, for example, in terms of how people have taken to the street rising up against this very same thing.
Yes. And even in the past, where there are people protesting tax changes, but we're kind of settled into it. What will happen is that government needs taxation to finance social services, education, healthcare, just the social things that people need to live better lives. Mm-hmm. And if the government is not committed to borrowing money to finance these things, it will have to cut services to the poor, because the poor benefit from public healthcare, they benefit from adequately funded public education, they benefit from government investing in community centers, or even public transportation, because as bad as things may be in Jamaica, Kingston's urban transportation system is subsidized by the government. The bus system that we have here in Kingston, public bus system. Mm-hmm. When government lacks the money to spend on these things, it will affect the poor. So it is a form of class war that's going on with taxation, that the government is shifting the burden of taxation to the poor, but they're also cutting the rate of tax on profits, on high income, and on wealth. Mm-hmm. So that benefits wealth people. That is an act of class war, because what some people look at it is that, it's a transfer of wealth from the poor, from the poor to the wealthy. And the wealthy are very conscious of that, but they get us here in Jamaica and across the world to hate taxes. We don't want to pay taxes, but we want the services. Like here in Jamaica, where the informal economy is about 40 to 60% of the formal economy. People think that they're being slick by hiding their incomes and not paying taxes. Both the wealthy and even poor people will try to do that. But at the same time, when you have a hurricane, they're saying, government will come and provide these services, but where will the money come from if we're not collectively throwing into the tax pot? Mm-hmm. The poor, the wealthy are avoiding paying and contribute to taxation. It's a terrible situation that we're going to be in. But the capitalist government here in Jamaica is also promoting taxation as a bad thing. The issue is the taxes should be spent on universal social programs. That means these are, when we talk about universal social programs, if we have public health care, that when you're sick, when you need surgery, you go to the hospital, you don't pay a cent because it's financed by taxation. We need those type of services where it's not like the PASS program, where your access to PASS is based on the level of income that you have. Those are not good programs. Mm-hmm. We need programs that are available to all citizens who need it in society.
Do I hear you making a case for taxation? That's what I'm getting you right. And you're saying, but what about equity in taxation, in taxing, in terms of how you tax the wealthy as compared to how you tax the poor?
Okay, that is why we need a progressive tax system But what governments have been doing in the imperialist countries and also in the global south is that they're having what they call regressive taxation, and that is taxation that puts the burden of collecting tax on poor people, not the wealthy who can pay. So when you cut the level of taxes and profit, they're trying to attract international capitalist companies, and you're also trying to encourage local capitalists to invest. When you cut taxes on high income, because you're saying when the money is in the hand of the wealthy, they will invest in society and create the jobs that will give income to the poor. That's their theory, the trickle-down theory that they have about wealth generation and prosperity. We don't see it happening in the United States. It's not happening here. So what we need is a progressive tax system that the more profit you make is the higher your taxation rate. The more income that you earn, the bigger your taxation. But all of that has been coming on since the late 1970s with the emergence of Margaret Thatcher in Britain, then Ronald Reagan, Brian Mulroney in Canada, Helmut Kohl in West Germany before it became reunited. All of this thing has been going on where they're attacking taxation. So they're creating an anti-tax message that even poor people are vibing on that. But when you have even tax cuts on income, for example, if they decide they're going to cut taxes on income, the poor get such a meager part. For example, if you get, say $20,000 Jamaican tax cuts, you may have to give up $100,000 in public services that you would have gotten if that tax had been pooled and support social programs. Mm-hmm. People are not looking at that tax cuts benefit wealthy people, not poor people. But they've kind of pulled the wool over our eyes in getting us to support anti-taxation. What we need is progressive taxation, where the higher your income, the higher level of profit that you generate, the greater your rate of taxation. Wealthy people don't want that. Mm-hmm. It's not in their interest. Mm-hmm. If we look even at other countries in the Nordic region, like Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, they have high taxation rates. Even their indirect tax is high, but they use the taxation to provide generous social programs. And yet those economies, as capitalist economies, they're very competitive based on world standards. They're also very innovative because the government and the private sector invest more money in research and development. And international capitalist company goes to these countries to invest, even though they have very, very high tax rates, and it destroys this notion that...
Don't we have to look, Brother Ajamo, at context, right? I had a conversation this morning with a sister, for example, from Kenya, who just laid out for us what caused the protests in Kenya, why they're going back to the streets, why young people, so 50 young people were killed, why so many of them are still in lockup. And one of the things she said that really stood out to me this morning is that she talked about the taxes that were being leveled on the people as a result of the IMF debt. And then she talked about the corruption. She said, no, they're coming to us for taxes to pay the IMF, repay the IMF loan. They have drawn down on these loans, but the people have not benefited from these loans. We don't see where those loans. As a matter of fact, they can tell you where those loans went. They went into the pockets, they're saying, of the politicians. They can speak to the mansions. They can speak to how politicians' corruption really running amok in places like Kenya. So yes, taxation, but in what context? Because when you have high levels of corruption, like you have in Jamaica and in Kenya, it's almost sacrilegious and a betrayal of the people to then come back to the same people who you're stealing from to tax, to repay the same loans that you and your corrupt cabal are using for your own personal enrichment.
And that is why we have to have social movements that will demand universal health care program. We're going to demand universal pharmacare, and pharmacare simply means that when you get a prescription from the hospital or the doctor, you don't pay for that because it's provided through taxation. We're talking about having adequately funded public schools, daycare centers, when we talk about higher taxes, that's one thing we're talking about. We're saying that these social programs, income support programs, should be put in place to make life better for the people under capitalism. So we would have to demand that, but we will have to have the tax revenues to pay for these things. We're talking about tax revenues that can support small farmers, tax revenue that can be put in place to provide land to poor people who want to engage in farming or have access to land to build homes. We're talking about building even affordable homes for people. That can come out of taxation. So we're fighting a war on multiple fronts because we're saying the tax revenue that's coming should support social and income support programs that are beneficial to the working class. And that is when you have a class perspective, your demands are very sharp because you're engaged in a class war, and the state is not a friend of the working class, but it has a function to legitimize the system in the eyes of the people, and that is why they may have to throw some carrots to us. We know that that's what they're doing because they don't want the system to be destroyed, so they try to take the sting or the commitment that people may develop to revolutionary change if they keep on oppressing us in the most outrageous manner. But at the same time, that same capitalist state must create the conditions for the capitalist class to generate profit. So there's a tension between the legitimation function of the capitalist state, which is to make the system acceptable, ideologically acceptable to the people, and then it has the other function of pleasing the capitalist class by creating the conditions for super profits and for the exploitation of the working class. So when we have a class analysis, we understand what's going on, and we're not blinded by the little things that will throw out there to distract us, because we know we're in a class war. The capitalist class is aware of that they're in a war, a class struggle against us. We don't know that we're in a class war because we do not have the high level of class consciousness that is necessary. When we talk about class consciousness, we're simply saying that we know that we're part of a class, a distinct class, and we have interests that are separate and apart and in conflict with the bourgeois or capitalist class. That's what we need
So there's a buy-in into the structure, the status quo, from the people themselves.
Absolutely. And it's in any type of system. Like under patriarchy, the patriarchy will brainwash women to support the same patriarchy, because who are the ones that mostly socialize boys and girls into the patriarchal system? You have the wider society, churches, schools, institutions outside of the home, but women also will socialize girls into accepting the patriarchy in the same way that some of our families will socialize us to accept the racist system, white supremacy. Oppressed people do that all over the world. And, even queer people, they'll talk about internalized homophobia, where even queer people will become homophobic because they have this internalized down-pression or oppression from the system. Our duty now is to raise the people's awareness, to let them see, or as I say, you be able to fight up while one. It can penetrate all this thing that's going on. You see, one of the things that's going on, when even Africans all over the world praise Marcus Garvey's program, very few Africans know that Garvey was a robust supporter of capitalism. And that's one of the main issue and challenge that I have with Garvey.
Well,
Garvey's economic program was based on capitalism.
Yes, that is true.
And all people cannot accept that. So them say Garvey has this and that. But the African petty bourgeois would have benefited from Garvey's approach to economic development. And they would exploit us just like how the African capitalists in Jamaica and in Kenya, all over the world, exploit African people. So when you have class consciousness, you can see what's going on in the world.
And I think it's for us, though, we also need to put Garvey in context in terms of his capitalism, right? Because there's so much more to this, his philosophy, that although it's a lot of the economics is grounded in capitalism, that if we look wider, he speaks himself to traditional ways of being and doing. And by traditional, I mean African traditional ways. So if we look at at Ma'at, if we look at Ubuntu, if we look at Uno, following Garvey's teachings, then that would take us into another direction anyway. And I think probably that's a way to understand Marcus Garvey when we're trying to understand what his economic principles were based in. That's just my aside for the minute.
No, you see, the thing is that what some, I would say apologists of Garvey's capitalism will say that Garvey proposed that no individual should own more than certain percentages of the shares. And a company shouldn't own more because he wanted to limit the power of a group within that society. But even in today's, based on what Garvey, the limit that Garvey had, and I have that in an essay, I don't remember the exact figures, it would be in the millions of dollars today. What it was worth in the 1920s would be millions. Poor people can't have millions of dollars of ownership in companies, because what they're looking at in America is that the top 1% of Americans own 54% of the stocks and mutual funds. 1%. So when people are saying, "Oh, I'm going to invest in stock and I'm a stock owner," you're a joke. Well, you don't have any voting power inside the company, because the institutional investors, the wealthy individuals, as a class, will group together to make decisions that are not in your interest.
It's a good point you make.
So a person owning $5,000 US of shares. Yeah. Well, that's a joke. That's monkey money.
It's a good point you
make.
You
think I'm a stock owner. No, you're not a stock owner. You're just invited to the party, but you're not a part of the dinner. True. You're not eating the dinner.
Yeah, as another aside, I kind of looking at what happened with they're calling it an IT pandemic, a global IT pandemic, where all the systems locked down. And what's the name of the company? CrowdStrike or what's its name? And Microsoft and so on. So I'm looking at this and doing the research, because usually I go to who owns what to find out, to give myself a platform on what to think about this. So, and then I check the company. And the majority shareholder in that company is BlackRock. And I'm thinking to myself, what if BlackRock is a majority shareholder in this company that is now telling us that there was no cyber attack, it's just a software upload problem? Then we're going to have to really look at ourselves if we're going to believe that. So, and then I look again to see what BlackRock is investing in, and they're the top shareholders in almost everything that we're using, consuming. Though it doesn't matter what it is, and it goes to the point you're making that we the people, with our 1% share, really have no voice in nothing at all, because there are so many other shareholders in this company. But here we are with a BlackRock as a top owner, top investor, then a shareholder in a company that is now responsible for what we're calling a global IT pandemic. It tells me that this was a deliberate cyber attack. It tells me so many other things. All right, that was an aside again, Ajamo. But let me just ask you this. Because I hear you talking about the relationship between capitalism and systemic inequalities, but how do we begin to dismantle these systems, or do we need to dismantle these systems?
We must work for their destruction. Like, we don't talk with water in our mouth as revolutionaries when it comes to capitalism. It must be destroyed, like feudalism was destroyed, like slavery was destroyed, because it is an oppressive society. Because when we look, because people say, "Oh, so what's wrong with people engaging in economics, generating wealth?" You're generating wealth from the backs of people who can't even live, who can't even dream about living your life. Remember, the workers who go to work. Now, we're talking about American workers, Jamaican workers. They go to work, but the compensation that they're getting cannot even finance food. People are not living, are not eating nutritionally in Jamaica. About 66% of Jamaicans cannot afford a healthy diet. Many Jamaicans are working, yet they can't eat well, but the owners of capital, the business owners, can fly away during a hurricane to America on a private jet and come back within days when everything is fine. They can live lives that when we look at it, we're just there admiring that, oh, I wish I could have adequate housing. I wish I could have the food that I need. I wish I could have the resources to send my children to good schools. I wish when I'm sick, I don't have to say, I can't go to the hospital because I need to pay the rent. These are things that are the effects of class power in society, that the minority, because if 10% of Jamaicans can own 3/5 of the wealth, that's just obscene. Mm-hmm. How can you own 3/5 of the wealth when the wealth was created by the workers? They're stealing from us. So when you working class people say, well, Ander, a grudge Issa, a grudge the Stewart family.
The Azans.
What they have done is stolen the wealth produced by the working class and accumulated to themselves.
So hold on there now. So I'm going to have to do a disclaimer right there, because this is commercial radio. Now, you said that they have stolen the wealth, and I understand the context in which you're saying that. But broadly speaking, you're not accusing any of these people of stealing right now in this space. So let me just say that.
Because what they're doing is legitimate and legal. And that's how capitalism is set up. They set up a system of exploitation that is legal. So a person can go, any one of us can go, if we get the capital, set up a business and hire workers. But how ethical is it that the same workers that produce the wealth, because remember during COVID, the capitalist class all over the world said, no, we can't have a lockdown. We need the workers to create wealth. How is it that a group that is so essential to wealth creation live in poverty? They can't afford basic things, housing, medicine, school. But yet the people who claim that they're the owners of capital can live high off the house, have private jets, have private yachts so they can go all over the place. How is that possible?
Yes. And so how is that so the question then, how is that possible? And I hear you say it's possible because of?
It's legal. It's a legally constructed system, because all ruling classes throughout history in the present period, they legalize systems that will ensure and that enable them to maintain the type of wealth extraction that they prefer. And the system that they prefer, capitalism, is not to the benefit of the majority of people who create wealth. When we talk about working class and their role in wealth creation, we're saying that the fruit of economic production profit generation goes to the wealthy. They pay us wages that are just pittance that can't meet our needs, and the bulk of the profit goes to the wealthy. We're saying that's fundamentally unfair, because the people, the class, the working class that is responsible for creating wealth don't benefit. And it's in that context that we're saying that the capitalist class steals the wealth from the working class, the wealth produced by the working class. Because even when they were saying, well, we went to the bank and we borrowed money to finance our business, poor people put their money in the bank, and the bank lends to the capitalist class. And the profit that goes to the wealthy people is a form of labor that didn't, return some labor that didn't go to the working class. So we're saying that they're not doing anything. They didn't create wealth like it's manna from the sky. It came from collective production. That's largely the work of the working class, who don't benefit from it.
Yes. I think when we come back, we talk about this idea of trickle-down economics. But what are some of the alternative economic models or solutions? And I'm going to take a break and come back, and we'll look at that we could use to address this idea, the classism, and also to promote greater equality. So let me take a quick break and come back.
Yeah.
Before we go to the the alternative economic models, let me ask you this, because there's an idea, it's not just in Jamaica, but a general idea that, you work hard and you succeed, and hard work is enough to succeed. Within the capitalist structure that we're talking about, the capitalism structure that we're talking about, is it fair to say hard work is enough to succeed?
No. if hard work was the guaranteed success, then women would own most of the wealth in society. Women do the bulk of the work in capitalist society, but they own a small part of the wealth. Men, wealthy men, bourgeois men, upper class men are the one that own the bulk of the wealth. If hard work guarantees success, then Africans should be the wealthiest across America, in the Americas, because we were enslaved and we continue to do the backbreaking work across the Americas. Hard work is not enough, but hard work is essential because we need to work hard in the liberation struggle to get rid of our capitalist masters. There's no doubt about that. So it calls for hard work, but it's more than just hard work. We have to change the structures in society that would enable the sufferers to have a fair shake in society. And we have to be very deliberate, very self-conscious about the type of structures we want in society in terms of the type of economic institutions, the type of educational institutions. Every institution in society should support our goal of equity, fairness, justice. We have to commit ourselves to that, and it requires hard work. And that is one of the reasons why we're working hard as sufferers, but then we have to also work hard at the task of liberation. Sometimes we don't have the time and no interest. We want to have some fun now. So you will find that a minority of us end up doing the bulk of the work of liberation. And sometimes we drop out by 50s and 60s, exhausted. Mm-hmm. Because of we carrying the weight of our neighbors. Mm. We're not all equally participating in the work of liberation.
Mm. All right, finally, let's look at some of those alternative economic models or the solutions to address classism, because obviously if we're saying that this doesn't work, if we're saying that capitalism perpetuates classism, and we understand, and you have laid out classism properly for us, then we should be looking at the alternative solutions.
Absolutely. And that is why I'm such a severe critic of the characters that are peddling reparations across the Caribbean for the political class, the bourgeois political class in the Caribbean. So I mean, no doubt about that, these characters are agents, are servants, because they're directed by the political rulers in each Caribbean country to be part of National Reparations Committee. And remember, CARICOM, with a 10-point program for reparations, is driving the official push towards reparations. If people are serious about reparations and want economic justice for the African working class, they would demand that the government not wait until we get payments from the imperialist countries for enslavement and colonialism, but they commit a part of the budget to finance worker-owned companies. They would commit resources to teach worker management of their own companies, worker control of their companies in the schools. From primary school right up to university, you'll be teaching workers how to collectively self-manage economic enterprises without bosses as exploiters. They would create a just situation. That is what we should be demanding from the capitalist governments across the Caribbean, is to finance worker ownership. We have the Andrew Holness regime saying we want an ownership society in Jamaica, but it means to intensify capitalism and bring in working class people as little petty investors in the system. We're saying commit part of the budget to finance worker ownership. And a worker self-managed company is a company in which the workers own, manage, and control total business. Mm-hmm. So they make the decision about sharing the profit, and they have systems in place where the more hours you put into the company, the greater claim you would have on the profit or the surplus. But it's not just about making money, but it's also workers controlling their labor. That your labor is not controlled by the capitalist class, directed and exploited. You have a just system going on. In the 1970s, the Manley government there were 22 worker cooperatives in the sugar industry. And that's an example of how workers can control their destiny. By 81, Seattle got rid of the program, but it's a shining example of the possibilities. So we can have worker ownership. When it comes to, many of us will criticize the capitalist banks, but we end up putting our savings in the capitalist banks, not in credit unions. Credit unions developed in the 19th century in Germany and in Italy to give agricultural workers and urban working class greater control over capital, because banks weren't lending them money, or when money was loaned to them, it's at some high interest rate. So credit unions as financial cooperatives can become instrument of the class struggle against capitalism. So we would have to demand government to put some legislative changes in place so that credit unions can truly compete with the capitalist banks. Because our commitment should be the destruction of capitalist banks. Mm-hmm. So we have our own credit unions as instrument of class struggle. Unfortunately, credit unions have kind of sometimes accommodated itself to the capitalist system. It's just one player among many players in the financial field. But for me, as a revolutionary, the destruction of the banks must be an objective of the workers' movement or the class struggle against capitalism. And it is essential that while we are fighting capitalism, that we build these workers, like we're building the new society within the old. So we start to extend worker ownership throughout the economy. We start to control financial institutions which are democratically owned by the members. We start to create supermarkets that are consumer cooperatives owned by the people who are shopping there. And they can have models where the workers and the consumers own these food retail places. If we have daycares, not capitalist individuals owning daycares, it will be the parents coming together and creating a cooperative where the objective is not to make money, but to provide services for the people. It is essential that we create the alternatives in capitalism with the goal not of accommodating ourselves to the present system, but to sow the seed of its own destruction. Because capitalism emerged out of feudal society, and at that time the capitalists just got rid of feudalism because the feudal order wasn't privileging them. That is why Charles I, who is the namesake of today's British king, he had his head chopped off because he didn't want to share power with the new capitalist class. So he had to agree. Well, Charles II came around, but they had to agree to share power with the capitalists. The same thing in France when you had the French Revolution in 1789. They had to get rid of the monarchical system because the rising capitalist class was being held back by the landed interests. And they're the new class, and this emerging capitalism. But the form like stock exchanges, banks, these things were emerging in feudal society. You had the new urban capitalists were loaning money to lords, and but after trying to realize that we can run this thing. We can do a similar thing in creating the new structures within the
I'm listening to you. I understand you clearly, of course, because this is something that I've studied, but I know there are many who we've lost along the way in this conversation. And this is why, as I listen to you, I know that there has to be other conversations regarding banking, for example, and the history of banking, how the banks are working now. Look at the stock market crash. Look at how Obama dealt with that a few years ago. But also to look at what we're facing now with what we're seeing now in the U.S. elections and the call for Biden to resign and the near assassination on Trump and all of that. But and to situate that as others have done within the understanding the banking structure. Now, this is a very powerful system that we're talking about that heads and leads this capitalist structure that you're analyzing for us this morning. So I'm going to ask you to come back and we kind of, prize it apart. Just to look at that some more so that our people understand what we're talking about when you talk about the importance of the banking system in capitalism and maintaining classism. Also, one of the things that I want as we wrap this up is I hear the points you're making. You've made them before in terms of where we need to go. But I just spoke with Stephanie Marley, who spoke about the fact that people are sleeping and the need for people to wake up and understand where we are and our role in changing the system.
Right.
How important is that? Because all of this that you've said this morning, brilliant. And this is information that we need in the space, that we need in our homes. But how do we then move on these? What will it take? What does it take?
Well, an important element of this work is creating activist organizations that are going to do the work. Kwame Ture, known as Stokely Carmichael, he told us that organization is the weapon of the oppressed. We must create organizations because that organizations are the instruments of the power that we can have as working class people, as the sufferers. You look in working class communities today, you see roads that could be repaired. We could repair it because the state doesn't have enough money to even repair some of these roads. But we don't have organizations in working class communities outside of churches to mobilize the people, to educate. So that is critical. But also the way that we work with people is critical. And that's another area that Kwame Ture is very important in teaching us about organizing versus mobilizing. What we have in Jamaica is mostly mobilizing. If there's an attack on public beach, some people scramble together and they run and react to it. When you're organizing, you have in place ongoing organizations, running programs, running projects, organizing institutions, educating people, and we're building the capacity of the people in terms of the knowledge, skills, and attitude that they need to do the liberation work. Mobilizing, it's reactive. Something happens, I will respond, but the enemy knows that. Give them 3 months. Where we have like the Black Lives Matter, they say, give them 3 or 4 years. It's going to peter out. But when we're organizing, we don't wait for media to come and spot and highlight something. We are continuously working with the people. Because organizing as a method of effecting our liberation is a permanent mobilization going on, as opposed to mobilizing, which is very episodic. That something happens, and we just jump and react to it, and then we go back to sleep after it is over. But with organizing, if for example, we're organizing workers in a community to own, for example, a jerk sauce business, that's ongoing, where the workers are doing that. We're plugged into our community. This jerk sauce business is not controlled by capitalists. The workers own the business. They make all the decisions democratically without bosses. And some people say, can you have a business without bosses? But there are actually worker cooperatives in existence across the world that are operating successfully. No bosses. The people make all the decisions, from shop floor decisions around employment or hiring people to how we should do work in the immediate workspace on the shop floor, to strategic decisions like how much should we allocate to profit sharing? How much should we introduce new technologies? So, what should the hiring level be in this worker-owned business? Those are strategic decisions that are made by the capitalist class. Now the workers will develop their capacity to manage all of these things. Because we can do it.
Yes.
But we just need exposure to the knowledge and the skills, and also the attitude. You can have the knowledge and skills, but you don't have the belief that you can do things. So that knowledge and skills are useless because you don't have the right attitude about change. The same thing here in Jamaica, in working class communities. We may have a bad road for 20 years and can't fix it. But yet we have the money inside the community, because same way that we do round robin dances to raise money for individual pursuits, we can do round robin to raise money to build daycare, to have sporting programs, to have after school tutorial program for our children. The money is there. But we only do it for individual things. We would just do it for collective things. It's okay. We need to fix this road in our community, and we put our effort to raise the money, get sand, and people. We have skilled people in our community, so we need the right attitude, but we need organization to pull the people together and do it on a permanent basis, where this is an ongoing. It's like you have an army, it's a standing army. It's ongoing. You don't have it now and you disband it and bring it back. It's a permanent war, because it's a class war that we're engaging. The enemy's prosecuting the war 24/7. We do it now and then when we feel like. And it's only a small number of us who will engage in terms of organized struggle.
Brother Ajamu, go ahead. Let me just...
but the thing is that all the things we're proposing whether to create credit union, worker-owned businesses. The capitalist class not going to sit idly by and let us pressure government. But because we're in a system with elections, if we're organized and we're class conscious, we are pushing demand on them. So they're going to be in a tricky position because they have to cater to the voters who will vote for one party or the other party. But at the same time, they know they have to cater to the capitalist class because they are a part of that. They're ideologically supportive of them. It's going to bring the struggle to a higher level and it's going to expose the contradictions where the capitalist state, the government, lies in terms of the people or the small money hogs class or the exploiting class.
Lots to chew on. Thank you so much as usual. We are all the time blessed to have you in this space. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the work you're doing, Sister, and just continue doing it, you know.
And you yourself. Thank you so much, my brother. Much appreciated. Brother Dr. Ajamu Nagwaya there. Wow. He said a lot there. And it's just for us to mull it over. Some of this he said before in this space. One of the things he is consistent and passionate about the change that is needed. Now we've heard this again. Let us begin to think about ways. You see that this thing about organizing within your community, about using what you've got in your community, about going back to community. This is the crux of the matter. All right, let me take a quick break. Just to quickly reiterate, I mentioned earlier this morning that the global IT pandemic, the cyber attack, they say it's not a cyber attack. We maintain that it's a cyber attack. The investigations are ongoing, I understand. But for those of us who are deep thinkers, there's a lot that we recall and a lot that we were expecting. As a matter of fact, it's not strange that it happened. But so I'm going to come back to the fact that it's not strange. While it was happening, though, it was in the middle of the RNC convention. That's the Donald Trump accepting his nomination. So it happened in the middle of that. So the morning after, instead of there being a whole lot of coverage of the RNC convention, the coverage was halved because a massive global IT pandemic happened. The initial reporting was that it looked like a cyber attack. It walked like a cyber attack. And so you know how that go. And then later on it changed. Also, the initial reporting talked about Microsoft, a cyber attack of Microsoft and Microsoft failings and what might have happened. And then later on, more and more you heard about it, the more and more Microsoft was hardly mentioned. Of course, then you hear more now about CrowdStrike, and the man from CrowdStrike came out and so on. A lot of people haven't heard about CrowdStrike before. And so a lot of you were Googling what the hell is CrowdStrike. Well, I was one of those, like, what is CrowdStrike? So I went, as usual, when I'm dealing with anything that comes out of the media, the global media or local media, and there are organizations involved, and more or less something as earth-shattering and wide-reaching and far-reaching as this, a global shutdown of the digital technologies of the IT system, airplanes grounded. It's like something out of a dystopian movie. I've seen this movie before. So when you see something like that, and an organization or two are named, you want to find out who's behind what. First, we knew immediately, that Microsoft was Bill Gates. So we say, okay, there's a lot there. We're not making any judgments immediately, but the minute you know that this is Bill Gates involved, because remember COVID, Bill Gates was involved in that too. So we had a global pandemic, and Bill Gates was all over that. And then now we have a global IT pandemic, and Microsoft is involved, and that's Bill Gates again. So I say, okay, put that over there. So let us now go look at this other company. Remember a few years ago and into I kind of ramped it up a few months ago to say, pay some attention to this company. There's a company I want you to look at. I want you to do all of your research on that. Hold your deep thinking. We don't have to be shouting it all over the world, but please pay some attention to BlackRock. I've been saying this to you for the last umpteen years, and especially within the last 2 years outside of COVID, I kind of ramped that up to say, pay some attention to BlackRock. This is what you need to be looking at, in addition to you looking at the EEF, if we're to understand what's going on around us. So immediately I went to see, so who's this company? Who is CrowdStrike? And only to find out that the majority shareholder in CrowdStrike, the top institutional holders are, and number one on this is BlackRock, right? And the second is Vanguard, and the third is Morgan Stanley. Now, that's ownership you're talking about. So then your deep thinking must, of course, include that knowledge that you've just gained, right? To understand what is happening. Then also, if you recall a few months ago, it might have been a year or so, that I carried a series of stories coming out of the World Economic Forum. And I told you that I had attended many of those sessions where conversations were about the convergence of the digital technologies and just where IT was going, and some of what was being said by Schwab, Klaus Schwab and them. I'm just trying to find some of that information because these are stuff that I already carried on this program. Oh, by the way, there's something that Microsoft did a few days before the global IT pandemic. And this was reported in the New York Post. We're understanding again that the New York Post is owned by Rupert Murdoch. So this is Murdoch Media reporting just 2 days before the global IT pandemic. It says Microsoft has reportedly laid off a team devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a big conversation in the U.S. now about DEI. And you would have heard this. It is being done in a racist way. Elon Musk is one of those persons who is totally against DEI. We don't have enough time to go into the conversation on DEI, but I'm sure you have an idea when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Microsoft has reportedly laid off a team devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion after pouring millions of dollars into the initiative, becoming the latest major company to ditch the woke policy. The woke policy. This is what it's being called by the right wing in the United States. And it goes on to say the big tech giant disbanded the DEI team at the beginning of July due to what they call changing business needs. This is according to a July 1 email obtained by the Business Insider. New York Post is reporting. And then it goes on to say it is unclear how many employees were affected. The decision was for a further sign that companies are pulling back on diversity-based initiatives that were put in place following the 2020 death of George Floyd and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protest campaigns. And it goes on to say, last year, Google and Meta reduced the scope of their DEI programs and cut staff as part of restructuring and layoffs at both companies. And this is according to CNBC. And it talks about other companies that were, ditching the DEI. Now, Microsoft did that just a day or so before this big global IT pandemic. We're not to take this global IT pandemic, we are not to treat it with any sort of lesser than. because this pandemic, this cyber attack happened at an interesting time. One, I said in the middle of the RNC. Two, just about the time that the ICJ was issuing its ruling that Israel should more or less leave Palestine. The International Court of Justice ruled that Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful and should come to an end as rapidly as possible. That happened the same day. This information came out the same day as the global IT pandemic. There's so much that was said in that ruling. I don't want you to take this lightly at all. This is something that's very important for us to pay some attention to. They delivered their advisory opinion in respect of the legal consequences arising from the policies and the practices of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. The judges pointed to a wide list of policies, including the building and expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the use of the area's natural resources, the annexation and imposition of permanent control over lands, and discriminatory policies against Palestinians, all of which it said violated international law. The court said Israel has no right to sovereignty of the territories, is violating international laws against acquiring territory by force, and is impeding Palestinians' right to self-determination. This is a far-reaching report coming out of the International Court of Justice. They say it's not binding, but it really doesn't even matter. What happened is that there was almost no reporting on this on any of the so-called mainstream media, global mainstream media, whether it's the United States or Europe, the UK in particular. But we also saw that the mainstream alternative media didn't cover this much at all, which is interesting. Israel, the court talked about Israel's abuse of its status as the occupying power renders its presence in the occupied Palestinian territory unlawful. Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and the regime associated with them have been established and are being maintained in violation of international law. This is according to the court. Well, what Israel did in right after this was to drop a bomb on Yemen. Now, Yemen is the poorest, and you talk about Haiti, which, I mean, don't even go there. Yemen has been suffering from starvation and poverty and the rest of it for the longest while, not because Yemen is not rich in minerals and others, but because the United States, Europe, and now Israel have been pounding Yemen, bombing this country for years and years and years and years, because they're fighting a proxy war in Yemen. This is basically what is happening. So this is what Israel did. Netanyahu is now heading to the U.S. to address Congress. He understands he's going to be talking or meeting with Donald Trump. This tells us a lot. The global community and the global leaders are recognizing that Trump is about to win the election. We have from the UK, we see Nigel Farage heading to Donald Trump. We saw a meeting of sorts in the UK between Zelensky and the new UK government. That's interesting. But at the same time, Zelensky is saying that he has reached out to Trump also. I'm saying a lot here because we're running out of time. But we have to pay attention to what's happening globally because all of it is feeding back on us. It doesn't matter who wins in the United States. The United States foreign policy, as far as it regards the African diaspora, whether it's the Caribbean or even continental Africa, the United States foreign policy remains the same. It is to oppress, it is to steal, it is to just take everything you've got, it is to militarize, and it is to tell you how to do your business. That's basically it. So we don't have a horse in the race. We're just pointing out things as they are happening. Go back and read in the meantime the report from Klaus Schwab was it last year, talked about the new... It's part of a global reset, right? He was talking about what was likely to happen with the digital technologies and with IT. And one of the things he said is that we could see a global shutdown of all the digital technologies. We could see airplanes being grounded, trains being grounded, hospitals not working, not being able to operate at their optimum. And exactly what's happening now is what he laid out. And then he had gone on to say that the World Economic Forum had developed a center, a digital center, a global digital center that could be part of a solution, if not the solution, to a situation like that. So the solution was created before the problem. Usually in situations like this, you create a solution and you find a problem to fit it. And so now they have found a problem to fit the solution that was laid out by Klaus Schwab last year. I'm going to leave it at that for now. We'll pick that up another time. But the global reset is in full swing, and we are bearing witness to it. Now we must return to that which we are and that which we were, which is to find ourselves within our African ways of being and our African ways of living, because that is the only answer to what they're about to unleash on us. So let's go back to Hunu. Let's go back to Ubuntu. Let's go back to Butu. Do you understand the point I'm making? Let's stand Kofa for that which is the best of us to survive what they're about to unleash on us. What is about to happen has already happened. Turn to your health, drink enough water, unwind somewhat, turn off the TV sometimes. And what more may no some fest this year? No. None at all, no night? Why? He was working. IRFM grounded you. Is there anybody you wanted to see?
I wanted to see Niger Boy.
Niger Boy, yeah.
I wanted to see, I've never been to Sumfest.
You've never been to Sumfest? You've been to Sumfest? You've never been to Sumfest? Oh, goodness. Why can't you call me something? Could I call somebody for you?
Petition for me, right?
Yeah, petition. You know I would do that for you. Now, listen. I don't think they don't know that you've never been to Sumfest. You didn't say that to anybody.
It's because I always have to work.
So why you not work from Sumfest? Do you show from Sumfest?
I guess you can try that for
next year. See it now. You might do him show from Sumfest next year. Come, sorry for you, you know. You've never been to Sumfest. I bet you didn't know that you've never been to Sumfest. We can't end it this way. Next year, we're going to ensure that DJ Collision not just go to Sumfest, but him also need to be working from Sumfest. Right, DJ Collision? There you go, Rain. All right, so Rain is in for the big A, and this is how we say goodbye. Thank you, Rain. My name is Kabu. Thank you, Vivian. You did a great job, Vivian, in getting it all together this morning. Until next week, walk good. Tell them other one how they see you next week, Sunday, inshallah. My name is Kabu. See you.